Howdy, I'm Andre, and this is Knowledge of the Damned, a War Machine and Hordes video battle report series where two players collaborate to show off the strategy and tactics that their lists bring to the table. The goal of this series is to present a game with as few players due to memory and attention as possible, showcasing the best that each list can do against the other. In this teaser episode, I'm joined by Mario, piloting Sepsira. I'll be playing Olesea Reznikova, and our scenario is Best Laid Plans. Throughout, we chat about the big picture plays, model-on-model matchups, and scenario considerations. As models interact on the table, relevant stats and rules will be shown on screen, though this may not always align with our commentary. I really hope you enjoy this initial offering. Please leave any feedback in the comments, and look forward to a more polished series launching early 2026.
My name is Mario, and I'm very grateful to be on with you, Andre. This is a really interesting idea that you wanted to curate, and I think that that's pretty cool. So I think the intention of this is that the video is going to be at higher speed than it would normally be played at, and we're going to be doing voice over top. But the game was played previously, and we're going to sort of explain now what our choices were and stuff like that as we watch the video together. So I had a Sepsira list, and I should probably pull that up and look at it. So I'm a Dusk player. I've been playing Dusk for the last year and a half. I have been a little bit frustrated and burnt out with War Machine over the last month or so for a lot of different reasons, and I thought, since I'm not playing in any leagues or anything like that, I'm going to... Andre approached me with this idea, and I thought it would be fun to get a game in. And I decided to play something completely different. So this is not Dusk. This is Necrofactorium. And I wanted to play some Sludge Thralls before they got nerfed in January, or potentially got nerfed in January. And that was my whole plan going into this list. So this is Sepsira with a couple of cheap Malefactors. I've got double Thralls, double Night Terrors, double Sludge Thralls, Furies, and I have some Mechanothrall Brutes in here, which should probably be Criterion, but I'm a bad player. And then I got a bunch of solos and stuff like that. The only thing for command cards that I did was that I put Sapper in the list because I've got double drag heavies. So Sapper seems pretty good in that situation, and I've been playing defenses in that slot for a lot of the armies that I want to sort of tinker with opponents' defenses, and it's just in my testing, it's just better to have Sapper than it is to try and position a barrel. The other command card that's in here is Duck and Cover. I don't play Duck and Cover that often, but with the defense 14 on the Cav, the Night Terrors, and the Incorporeal, you can really bully the table with a Duck and Cover and some defensive terrain with those models. So I felt like that was a good pick.
The Olesea list I'm piloting in this particular matchup is lifted from Corey Doyle of WTC and other Canadian fame, and it's fairly similar to Olesea list I've been playing since she came out. Insofar as it's double Ursins, double Staff Primes, and Starved. The main difference is that now the list takes, or rather Corey's variant of the list takes 2 units of Shearlings, whereas I was taking 1 unit of Shearlings and an Urson Champ. And the main reason for the Urson Champ for me is that I really like Precision Strike, and it just makes life easier, makes positioning easier, and it just takes away one thing to think about. And the way Ursins play, it does let you leapfrog them and then leapfrog the Starved. So it is quite nice. But in this particular match, I found double Shearlings to be insanely good. And there's also Hounds in this list because Hounds should be in every list. And then command cards wise, I think the only notable thing in my list is that I have put the Fires out because even though there are 3 or 4 cohort models, the bulk of the work is going to be done by Ursins, and so having them shadowbound or knocked down or otherwise disrupted is not great for this list. The primes are there for control. The Ursins are there to flex. We can kind of dive into the beginning of this game. We are playing Best Laid Plans, the most fun and interesting 3-in-1 scenario. And I won the roll-off to go first. And I took first turn. And then Mario chose the top side of the table. Do you have any particular reason for choosing the top side, or what were you thinking there?
I like the hill quite a bit. I wanted the hill for the cav. Like, I didn't want the forest getting it. There isn't actually a lot of Pathfinder in Grix, which we come to find out later in this game. So I felt like there was a little bit more open space on the top. It's a pretty even table, and you didn't have a lot of guns, so I didn't feel like the Dust Devil was going to do me any favors. But yeah, that was the thought process.
Yeah. And so as far as you can see, Mario's deployment is fairly symmetrical. Sludge is on the far flanks. Night Terrors tucked in, and then Cohort and Swarm central, along with the Furies for support. For my deployment, however, I stuck both units of Ursins and Starved on my right hand because the unit scoreable scenario objectives are on that side, and my plan was to kind of push on that as hard as I could, hoping that the 40s would stay, and if they didn't, just pile into the 50s in the center. And then my two heavies, the other two heavies, the primes, kind of went central a little bit towards the cache. And as far as actually going for the cache, I pretty much was just going to put hounds and have them wander over that way. But in general, with Best Laid Plans, what I've found is that the cache is by far the least valuable. And essentially in any scenario that's true, because the cache is worth 2 points. That's it. Whereas every other objective is worth, far more than 2 points. So you really want to set up to score those way more rather than trying to push for the cache too hard. I took Tendrils and Earth Spikes so that I can have an AoE against Mechanothrall swarms. What did you rack, Mario?
Well, it's Sepsira, and I don't need. I felt like I needed a Ghost Walk, so I just went with the core 3. So to quote Travis Marg, you look at the table, you go, I'm going to rack Carnage, Ghost Walk, and Tithing Touch. That's the ones, because those are the best spells in the army, and if you don't need anything else, those are the ones you take. And none of them require that you hit your opposing enemy models. And with this meta that has so much anti-spell, turns out that all these spells work every single time. So,
yeah. Crix does love just buffing their mid-tier units to be extremely potent and cheat trades that way. We're going to kind of skim through turn 1 for both of us, because I would say that generally speaking, turn 1 for first player involves running everything at max distance. I didn't actually do that, so my turn 1 looked a bit like this, where I did keep my forwardmost right-hand unit of Ursins outside of spray range of the Bile Thralls, because I did not feel like I really wanted to take chip damage. I think that was perhaps a little bit cautious. They could have probably just gone behind that forest and been happy. So, for example, if I had my rightmost Ursin behind the forest and everyone else conga line behind him, that might have been a more aggressive way to get some board space.
you were respecting the feet and you were expecting the drags.
Yeah, that's also true. The feet, I think that unit of Ursins could have been well out of it. I guess the other thing to mention here is I did make a just crazy mistake, and I didn't have my rapid growth template out, so Mario very generously let me put it out, because we're trying to play a game where we don't make silly mistakes.
Well, I'm gonna let you do that every time. I want my opponent to play, like, if they can do something, I want them to do it. If they can, if they roll a dice and want to take a dice roll back, that's one thing. But if they can do something, it's in their power. I want them to do it.
Yeah, I entirely agree. That's sort of the ethos of this entire series. It's sort of not punishing people for making mistakes due to inattention. I mean, part of it is also not just that, but also trying to have the best tactically laid out turns. But at the same time, if something is possible and you just did it out of order, in this series, we're going to try to aim for having the best possible player agency outcomes possible, while also having dice rolls to. I mean, this game is about dice. If we don't roll dice, we're not really playing War Machine. And you know what? It does come up in this game because my dice are fucking fire for some of Olesea's spell rolls, and that's just how it goes. So that's my turn one, rushing forward, trying to stay not really respecting the biles on the left hand side with hounds because they ignore they're corrosion resistant, so they're just going to take 1d6 of damage, and maybe being a tad bit too cautious on the right hand side with the Ursins, respecting too much of the threat range on those bile thralls, those sludge thralls there. Basically, the first thing that you're looking at here is where Sepsira goes, because Olesea can get to her with a walk and teleport, and then cast all her spells under her feet. So you're trying to stay outside of that threat range, both of Olesea and of the two primes, while keeping in mind that I will need guidance in order to hit Sepsira because she's going to get stealth from Black Man here. What else were you thinking throughout your turn?
Yeah, so we had a long discussion about threat ranges. I've never played against Olesea before. She's going to be a pretty popular caster, I think, moving into the rest of the year and into next year. And I really wanted to learn what she would be able to do. So we had a long discussion about how many dice we were going to be able to throw at things. And ultimately, we decided that if I was in cover and I had stealth and I forced you to use all of your guidances and I camped 5, it was going to be pretty unlikely for you to be able to kill her on one turn. But I wanted to threaten with her feet. I think that's a pretty important part of her kit. So I wanted to put her in a place where she was going to be threatening, but also I protected her. And so what we ended up deciding was we were going to be in cover, we were going to be camping 5, we're going to have some things in front of me, and we're going to have some shield guards wrapped around, and that was going to be enough to see if it was juicy enough for you to go for it and have it not be likely, or just keep her safe. And that's ultimately what we decided to do. Yeah, so like I'm respecting your threat ranges, but I can't stay out of everything. So we put the terrors on the hill with duck and cover, making them defense 20 and incorporeal. You have to spend your guidances to get an unlikely opportunity to kill one. So I felt like that was the best place for it. And the rest of the army just sort of like dirtled forward to see what your choices were going to be on your turn. I'm kind of banking that the caches are going to go away. I felt like the matchup that had been created with the hounds and the sludge thralls, I was just going to lose. So I moved them to see if I could get them a little bit more better spot on the table to be positioned, that they weren't just going to auto get kicked in the teeth.
We rolled for which scenario element would go away, and it was the caches, which is wonderful. It's what we both wanted. So now we're playing for the 50s in the center and the 40s on the right. So that's what our turn one looks like. I think the Night Terrors are very nice and safe. I don't have a lot of stuff I can go for, and your threat ranges are relatively very far on both the Night Terrors and the Sludge Thralls. And even more importantly, Sepsira's feet thralls are quite terrifying. Although the interaction between spring blades from Olesea's feet and Harvest does make it so Olesea is practically immune from actually dying from the Mechanothralls as long as she has transfer targets. Each Mechanothrall will take 1d3 damage when they hit her, and then they will take 1 damage minimum, which will cause them to take a tough check. And if they fail that, she can harvest them for 1 fury and transfer again. So if she starts with at least 1 fury, she's very unlikely to take enough damage to kill her, since at best they're going to get their 5 initial attacks if they all pass their tough checks. And so I think neither Mario nor I were exactly on the ball with that interaction, essentially making her immune from the feet, That being said, I did expect the feat to go in on a primeval because I think the general way her feat goes is trying to use the free unit and scything touch to take a heavy and get up over 10 points in attrition, and that is a great way to play her. Okay, so diving into my turn 2, my plan here was to try to be pretty cautious. I hemmed and hawed about whether I would feat or not, but given how far Sepsira's army is going to threat, I did feel like I had to drop the feat here. In general, one thing I've been trying to practice more, and I think one thing that makes for a better game of War Machine that goes to turn 7 in an interesting way, is holding your feat. In this case, I simply did not feel like this army was kitted out to slow roll against yours without feeding and literally slowing you down. So, knowing that, my plan here was to tank up on the 40s with the Urson and Starved package. I fed some corpses via Found One to the Starved, and I rolled quite well for corpses and managed to get my Prime number 2 up to 5 corpses, meaning he'd get +2 damage on all on all damage rolls, which includes Stranglehold, making it a POW 15 nuke, which is awesome. So the plan here was sling out 2 Strangleholds with the primes, advance Olesea, feat, and then teleport away, and then camp a whole bunch. Because again, at this point, I was not appreciating the fact that she's functionally immune to the feat, and I really wanted to be 19 inches away from Sepsira. Now, with the knowledge that her feat prevents her from really being killed by those Mechanothralls, I think I would have been far more aggressive, kept her within Sepsira's threat range, but outside the threat ranges of everything else. So she still does need to be pretty far away from the Night Terrors. Nevertheless, I can either block line of sight, which they can still walk through forest, but perhaps I would have not peeled her back quite so far, and I wouldn't have been so conservative with how much fury I was putting on the board. And part of the difficulty here with how those Ursons unpacked was that, again, I don't have Precision Strike in this list, so they have to not gum up their own movement. And again, it's just so much easier to be able to move through your own models. Olesea came up, feeded, caught just the front few models on the right-hand side and center. Then because of that, she really was not in position to do any strangle holding herself, but she did shoot her gun that ignores cover and concealment at one of the Night Terrors.
And I think in the end we decided not. You did target them, but then I mentioned Shield Guard.
You mentioned the Shield Guard. I realized that I do not want to trigger Vengeance. I actually took the shot on the Malefactor and did quite a bit of damage. I did 11 points of damage to him, and so he's an armor 18 model. I'm a POW 14. So I rolled a 15 on a boosted damage roll. So she spent just 2 fury on her turn, 1 to boost a gunshot on the Malefactor, and 1 to boost the damage there. So she's camping 5, and under her feet is up, so Spring Blades are up.
This was the first of 2 bullshit rolls that the Malefactor takes this turn.
It's true. Skrobala gets the knockdown, puts a few points of damage. The Prime advances to within 8 inches of the central Malefactor. Doesn't need to boost the hit because the Malefactor is, while in cover, he's knocked down and has the -2 defense. So I boost the damage, roll 17 on the die with a POW 15, which is -3. So that's another 14 points of damage to finish him off. I think he had 13, so I rolled 1 more than I needed, but still ridiculous damage rolls. The Feral goes closer to Olesea because I am afraid that somehow you'll get in melee with her. Just, again, not remembering the interaction with the Spring Blades. The second Prime stays behind the barrier, but I have 4 Fury on the board, and I'm only going to be able to take away 2 of those Fury with the Shepherd. I don't feel confident putting up Earth's Blessing on the other Prime, and I don't think to pull him back out of the Malefactor's drag range. So that is certainly a misplay on my part this turn. Then the Wardens go and score drag. Okay, so that is the end of my turn 2. No scoring occurs because I'm first player. And Mario, what are you thinking going into your turn 2?
Yeah, so the forests are a problem for me, but I can draw line of sight to the hounds from the cav on the hill. So I'm looking at a play where I can get Primeval number 2. So I'm looking at being able to charge in the cav into the Primeval. Now you're going to take away 2 of my charge attacks with your goaty goats, but we can also get a charge with Sepsira's feet into Veroni, and then position my free Mechanothralls and get some charge attacks into the Primeval. So I feel like that is a play that I can get, and then I want to go for the drag on Primeval number 1. So my plan this turn is to take 2 heavies and shove all my models in your face and see what happens on scenario, because I feel like Crix is pretty good at like just shoving chaff in people's faces and see how they do. I figure I only need Carnage because I already have Scything Touch on the cab, so we upkeep that for free from Thymestra. So we're going to be camping 5 at the end of this and just be a little bit slightly forward than we were before. And since your feet is gone, I feel a little more safe in that rubble. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what the positioning is for all of this right now. So I don't want to use Tactician here. I want to put Reposition on the Furies, because what I want to do is advance and then put 1 Fury 9 inches forwards, or 11 inches forwards into the middle of the table and back the rest off. I feel like that's really powerful with Sepsira, that you can just hand them Reposition 3. You don't have to spend hit and run for that. You can save hit and run for later in the game. And the ability I'm looking for here is Power of Death, because I want the +2.
Yeah, and that's an amazing little bit of tactica there with the Furies, spending them 1 at a time, using Reposition. Super annoying play. And of course, they just have Mortal Fear as a passive, and most of my army is living, so really strong play, getting both the damage buff and the armor buff for the cost of effectively just 1 model, but even that model is relatively hard to.
So now we're just trying to place Mechanothrall such that I can get... Oh, we're trying to draw line of sight here to Veroni. So I want to put a Mechanothrall so I can draw line of sight to Veroni to do the charge. And then we need to shuffle the Mechanothralls around such that I have 1 that can charge, and Thymestra has line of sight to the lead Mechanothrall, because I can't see through my own models because I did not do Tactician. Oh, that was the other thing, was that I played Lucky Penny on the ILO so I could have a soul to reroll if I missed the drag.
Indeed. And your other command card was Sapper to get rid of that wall, which I fully expected, and I knew that I should have Earth's Blessing up and just did not feel like I had the breathing room because of how much fury I had kept on Olesea.
So ideally I would have liked to have Scything Touch on him, but we didn't position correctly with that. And then I also am not going to be able to get the Brutes onto him because you feeded, and they're not going to have enough distance to charge. So I have to spend the Mechanothralls that are on the hill to do this.
That's right. And I think the other thing worth mentioning is you are taking points of damage on the Malefactor every time you swing, and it adds up. I think you swing 3 times with him. The Mechanothralls, like you mentioned, have to come in and finish the job off, charging through those Incorporeal Night Terrors. So you get all 5 on him, and 2 of them also on Hounds. How does that go for you?
Yeah, I mean, I lose half of them, but they end up getting the job done. Turns out PAL 14 charges is pretty good.
All right, and then it's time to execute this plan where the Night Terrors who have line of sight to the Hounds can go in and also tag Primeval number 2, going for your second heavy. So how does this bit go for you?
Yeah, so in the end, we get what we want, but not great. So what I learned halfway through, so we target Scribala, and I believe we kill Scribala with the charge attack. So that's the first charge attack that gets absorbed, and then we go with the Scything Touch on the second initial, and we do some damage. I believe just 1 point to the Primeval, which is enough to trigger Finisher, which is great. And then we go through here and we lose our second charge attack from a goat, and then we do a bit more damage with the offhand attack, and then we lose our third charge attack from the last goat, and do a bit more damage. I think he's just under half killed at this point. And it's at this point I realize I don't actually have Pathfinder now because the incorporeal is gone. And the challenge here is that I don't think I'm going to be able to get Mechanothralls into this primeval now. So we do a bit of back and forth, and we finally find a spot where we can actually put this guy, but it takes a bit of measuring to figure that out. Now, Andre's very gracious here because I did move that cav number 4, and I confirmed its position, and we tried to move it back to where it was. I'm not 100% sure that I can actually do this, but in the end, Andre was gracious enough to figure that we could probably have ended up doing this, just trying to reverse engineer where that cav model was. So I appreciate you for that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the wiggle room here was like a 0.1 inch on War Table, and in a physical game, I think that would have been possible, and more so if Mario had realized how fucking tricky it is to position those guys when they lose incorporeal. I think the charge landing zones could have been different. So all in all, this plan seems entirely possible, despite the fact that the non-charge or the non-incorporeal repositioning is a pain in the ass due to all the rough terrain surrounding those Night Terrors.
I would have put Night Terror number 4 closer to the red 50mm objective. I wouldn't have put him as far over.
So let's see then. How do these Mechanothralls fare?
Yeah, I don't roll great on the first ones, and then I spike the last 2, and he goes down.
That's right. And for your troubles, you also make tough checks there.
Yeah, I make a couple tough checks, but we're not getting offhand attacks. We're only getting charge attacks because of Spring Blades.
But that's not all for your army. You still have more Mechanothralls, another unit of Night Terrors, and Sludge Thralls. So what's going on over on the right-hand side of the board?
Yeah, so I imagine this would go better, and it didn't because I didn't have Scything Touch up on this side of the table. So I kind of bounce off bears here. A couple of poor damage rolls, but I think that in the end, the progress that I make is about what I should be doing dice-wise. But my plan here is just to jam you up.
You do go in with the Night Terrors last, keeping in mind the finisher. So just trying to put just 1 point, honestly, of damage on those bears so that you get finisher on them.
Yeah, we get it. We get a bear, but that was it. I was hoping to get 3.
Knowing what is about to come with the remaining Night Terrors, do use a goat to keep a bear alive, and then the Night Terrors go in, and I think they do rather.
Yeah, I mean, I was imagining that I would do more damage, but like when I looked at what was expected, I think I miss a charge attack here too, but that's okay. I'm in your face and I'm contesting, and that was ultimately what we wanted.
I think 2 heavies on Sepsira feat is a feat well played. And then this last unit of Mechanothralls, what's the thinking here?
I'm trying to get some shield guards onto my caster and position them for next turn.
Beautiful. All right, so that's Mario's turn. I would say a pretty brutal and well played Sepsira feat turn. So scoring occurs. Mario scores 50 closest to his side of the board and his flag, and I score my flag, but I'm denied 40s and my 50.
So I'll note that the Malefactor is within 3 inches of both of those 50mm objectives, and that was your suggestion. I didn't actually see that he could stand there, and he doesn't end up moving for the rest of the game. So it was a beautiful spot that he could stand. So I appreciate you helping me out with that.
My thought here is I'm going to clear those 40s and score both of them for the rest of this game. That's how I'm going to win. So looking at that, how am I going to make that happen? Well, I'm going to kill those terrors that are tying up the Ursins, and then I'm going to use those Ursins to kill those goddamn Sludge Thralls.
So it's at this point that I realized that you still have you still have 2 heavies on the table, and I was like, the work that I did in my last turn, I was like, I felt like I was in a really good position, and then you bring in your 2 more heavies to do work, and I was like, Rrr.
What I will say, though, for my part, is that the Furies are really hard for me to deal with, and I don't think I thought enough about putting Olesea's spells into the Furies to just take one of them away. Because my thought was, I'm just not really going to be fighting in the center of the board, so I don't care about Mortal Fear that much on this turn. But taking a Fury away would have still been extremely useful. So, all that being said, Olesea pulls back all of her fury, upkeeps rapid growth, harvest, and tendrils. I believe one of those is with a corpse on Veroni, and because Veroni is full on corpses from all the stuff you've killed, the 2 primes, Scrobala, and 1 Urson. So he's on 5 corpses. He uses one of those corpses to do some upkeeping, and then we go with the plan of clearing off those 40s. I do have tendrils on the more central unit of Ursins, so I'm kind of considering where they can use those tendrils for maximum annoyance. And then I actually decide that those Ursins are better suited charging and getting the Bile Thralls killed before the already damaged unit of Ursins goes. We do kill them all. And then we start repositioning to score the topmost 40. Then with the... Here, I make a sort of strange decision to try to kill 1 remaining Night Terror with a sheep. And that sort of blocks stuff up until Mario reminds me the sheep can reposition, which is exactly what that sheep does. Letting the Ursins that took some damage go in centrally. So sort of switching the roles, the unjammed Ursins go central. And the bottom 40 will be scored by the Shepherd and Ram, while the top one's scored by the Ursins. I sort of skipped through the activation of those 2 Ursins that managed to wipe all of the remaining Mechanothralls in the center.
So I knew that bears had a lot of attacks, and they're only Mat 6, Rat 6, but they can clear a lot of chaff. They've got a lot of ability to just sort of come in and remove all the bullshit that's in the middle of the table pretty efficiently.
POW 14's taken to POW 12 will still do a minimum of 14 damage. So every time I hit, I will kill. They're not terribly difficult to hit, and I have a very large amount of attacks. So goodbye, Mechanothralls. Olesea advances to within 10 of the Malefactor using Craft Talisman from the Animist to get that extra range. And she tags the Malefactor with Stranglehold 1 more time. We go for the Night Terror who is in our face with the Wardens who absolutely fail to do so. We still have a Feral who can finish him off. Starved walks up, finishes off the other Night Terror, puts up Hunger Pain and his Animus, and scooches a little towards the center to make Sepsira scared. And that is my turn 3. I score both 40s and my flag for a total of 3 control points, taking me to 4. And Mario scores his flag, but I've contested the 50s using Veroni and the Hounds and 1 Urson. Looking at your turn 3, Mario, what are you thinking here?
So it dawns on me at this point that I'm behind on attrition. I think if I had the full activation of my heavy, I'm probably in a better position, but I don't. So I kind of need to get some work done, and I don't think it's going to go great for me. But we try our best to do as much as we can. I'd really like to clear off the 50s and score those again, and that's what I'm trying to do here. Sepsira ends up running over to the flag and puts up Carnage and runs over to the flag.
So you need to kill 2 Hounds, 1 Urson, and Veroni, and it looks like you put out Scything Touch and Ghost Walk on a unit of Mechanothralls, having some Fury filled up on the Malefactor, who is Strangleheld, but is in melee with 1 of the Hounds. What are you thinking over here on the left side?
We're running to contest your flag. I didn't really have any other models that could do that, and I felt like these guys were tough enough that they could handle the reprisal. And then we're charging with the Iron Lich Commander, who I believe ends up missing his attack roll here. Brute Thralls come in and kill the last Hound, so I'm scoring the 250s now and contesting your flag. So we do score a couple control points here, but I'm bleeding pieces at this point.
So Mario will score both 50s and his flag, and I will score 1 of the 40s. So the score goes from 3-4 up to 5-6, with Mario having 6. And now going into my turn 4, I'm thinking that I need to do cleanup duty. Main thing that needs to happen is I need to clear off 40s and my flag so that I can score 3 points. And then additionally, contesting the 250s, there's not really a way for me to contest Mario's flag. So we go ahead and go for that. The Feral is the best positioned thing to kill the Sludge Thralls, but unfortunately it does mean that it's very likely that I lose some of my Wardens, and I am going to charge up top with the Tendril unit of bears to start jamming up the 50s, because at this point I recognize that the 40s can be easily cleared off by the Starved, and the remaining Goat and Dark Shepherd can score both of them. So that'll net me 2 points, and then I'll have to clear off the Scarlock Commander a bit later, but that's okay. So bears start moving towards the center, clear off some more Mechanothralls, shuffle around to make it difficult to counterpunch them. Then we, like I mentioned, move away the Dark Shepherd so he doesn't die, but still scores my flag. Feral comes in, gets one of the Sludge Thralls. The Wardens decide it's okay for them to die, and also they'll angle up the Sludge Thralls, so they charge in, kill one, who explodes and kills both of them, and that's that. Olesea does go in and stranglehold the Malefactor one more time. When all of that is all said and done, I will score both of the 40s and my flag, and Mario will score his flag. So we go from 5-6 in Mario's favor to 8-7 in my favor. Mario, what is your out at this point in the game?
So I believe at this point in the evening it is midnight, and we're both very sleepy. and I look at the table, and I've got a heavy that's strangleheld. I've got a knockdown Sludge Thrall on your. So I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the time, and I'm going, this is your game, Andre. I'm not going to be able to prevent you from. I'm going to be able to contest those 40s for a little bit, but there's not a sustainable way that I'm going to be able to score out here, and I don't have enough juice in the tank, not without a full activation on a heavy. If I have a full activation on a heavy, I can potentially, with Gang Fighter, kill those 3 bears contesting my red 50. I can get a Ghost Walk and a Carnage and Scything Touch, and I can kill them and score again. But with the Stranglehold on him, I'm pretty much vice gripped, and then next turn you're going to be able to come in, kill my heavy, and win. So that's essentially what we just talk out here. We do some things. We drag in the Feral. We kill it, but it's a slow grind in your favor at this point. I'm unable to kill the rest of your bears, and that's where the video is a little bit disjointed here because we're essentially just talking about the different options that we have. But it's essentially that's what we end up deciding.
I think you do not have the option to score both of the 50s, but you can score one. However, dragging the Feral out does prevent me from scoring my own flag, so you don't even need to use that Sludge Thrall to contest there. And the Scarlock Commander can run and contest both of my 40s. So you are able to basically lock out my scoring and go up 2 more points. But then, like you mentioned, after that point, I can clear out the Scarlock Thrall, amp the Dark Shepherd over there to score, while Starved goes off towards the center to finish everything else off. And I still have 3 bears that you're going to be sort of challenged to remove while I continually stranglehold the Malefactor.
We get one with Sepsira. She comes in and kills one.
She does indeed kill a bear. So that's sort of where we call it. This is going to be the end of turn 4. I believe Mario will go up 2. So Mario will be at 8, and I will also be at 8. And then on my turn 5, 6, and 7, I'm going to be able to score at least 1 point on the blue 40. Thymestra can still run in and contest the top 40, but in either case, I'll score both of them on my turn and then one of them on Mario's turn. And then sooner or later, that Malefactor will presumably die, either to Olesea nuking it or to the Starved wandering over there and murdering it. So the ability for Mario to keep the going +1 -1 turn in and turn out for 3 more turns is not possible. And I think Sepsira has no particular way to kill Olesea at this point, whereas Olesea could start pumping spells into Sepsira, but I don't think it's as profitable as just strangleholding the Malefactor over and over.
Yep, you won this game on attrition, and the scenario is the one that is going to show for it in the end. I thought it was a really interesting game though, because we both learned some new things, and there was enough interaction, even though it didn't go 7 turns. There was enough back and forth that it felt like we were even on attrition until the end, and there was enough interesting things that it made it so it wasn't a one-sided game.
Some things to consider on my part are like I mentioned at the outset, the interaction between Spring Blades and Harvest means that Olesea is safe from Sepsira's longest threat range, which is her walking and feeding Mechanothralls, who then charge their full distance at Olesea, and therefore it becomes much more safe for me to use Earth's Blessing to keep my kind of reserve primeval from getting dragged in. And I think at that point, the attrition is actually significantly further in my favor. That being said, the first Malefactor I took was through tremendous dice spikes. I actually also noticed this. I forgot to move the goat back into scoring position, so we were kind of rushing through the last 2 turns there, turn 3 and 4. But the Dark Shepherd and the goat on the right hand side always had the ability to be standing within the 40 between the two 40s to score them. I just appear to have forgot to ever activate them and move them there, so that we had been playing as if they were scoring them, despite the fact that in fact I forgot to ever move that goat. And also, the Brute Thralls suck, and if they were Criterion, my life would have been infinitely harder.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to play this game, and I think that you've got a pretty interesting idea of how to curate these battle reports here, with Wartable as a means to do that.
Thanks for joining us on this teaser episode of Knowledge of the Damned. I hope that you enjoyed watching Mario and I play this matchup, learned a little bit about Sepsira, learned a little bit about Olesea, and maybe had some thoughts about best laid plans. We'll see you in 2026.